You know we're recording right now. You
No,
know that,
I
right?
didn't know. Wait a second, my lights.
That's good stuff. That's good. That's good virtual.
That's good virtual.
Welcome to another episode of Latina Stream Queen, where I interview one of the most influential Latina queens in comedy, Marthachaves, originally from Nicaragua, now living in Montreal. Am I correct?
Toronto.
Toronto. Yeah. And it's Canada. Hi. Hi, Linda. Hi.
No makeup, sweatpants,
Oh, you
dressed
look
up.
great.
I dressed up.
She's the best. She's the nicest person
So
ever.
you didn't meet her in Nicaragua then, huh?
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
No,
meet
I
you
didn't.
too, Linda. Linda, thank you for supporting a comedian. It's very hard to find people who will put up with us.
I attribute my getting along with her. I don't know. I'm doing my act now for you. I say that I say on stage that I attributed that she is white. Our getting along well is based on the color of her skin. That's the foundation. She doesn't borrow my fucking foundation. I hate to share my makeup.
Marthachaves, I have to ask you, what are your beauty tips, Latina queen?
Okay, let me explain, Marga, that my name is Marta. My mother
Wait a minute.
wanted. No, but let me explain it to you. My mother wanted to be chic in Nicaragua, and she inserted the H. And the H in Spanish is mute. She didn't know that there was going to be a revolution. We had to leave, and that I was going to have to explain this my whole life. It's not Martha, it's Marta. And it's not Chavez with a Z, it's Chavez with an S because my
Look
family.
below you. It's spelled correctly.
Yes, Marta Chavez with an S. So, anyway, what do I use for beauty? I tell you.
Yes, please tell me, Marta.
But I only use, but I use it day and night. Ever since I am 15 years old, 4 years ago, I only use oil of Olay. I never have spent one more cent than with that moisturization. And I attribute that I don't have as the wrinkles that I should have with the years that I have that I'm not ready to confess yet. But I attributed that I'm Latin. You know what they say? Black don't crack. Latin remains satin. White, we don't give a shit. They have the money and the power. They can fuck off and wrinkle.
That's
They
right.
don't
God
belong, they
gave
don't
us
belong in our rhyme.
God gave our skin elasticity to make up for economic hardship.
Not long ago, I accepted to do these experiments. This experiment, it was at this comic called me, you want to make $150? And I go, well, yes, why, what do I have to do? We are going through our economic hardships with no shows, right? And she goes, it's just that we're going to take a picture of you, and they only going to use a little square, and you got to use these products for a month.
Oh,
But
no.
I forget the name. Linda, what's the name of the product that I used?
Did they make you take
Elizabeth.
LSD also?
Elizabeth Grant. So then I started using that, like I really concentrated on las patas de gallina, they call it, the
Crow's feet. Crow's feet. Yeah.
CrossFit and everything. And I think that it has done wonders because I am all I'm all.
Are you getting paid to say that? No,
No,
you do look great, but that could just be the Latina. Listen.
no, I'm not getting
But
paid. They
listen.
pay me for
Okay.
using it.
Well, what would you not do for $150? Don't answer that. All right,
There are a
listen.
lot of things that I wouldn't do.
Oh yeah.
A friend of mine, she invited, that wasn't before the pandemic. She invited me to do a show you have to do it in the nude. And she said it's a nudist place. And several comics that I know have done it. And I go, no. And then she goes, it's $400, for 20 minutes. And I go, well, no, Linda pays me 600 for doing a show in the morning.
I would like to play a clip of Marta in action. Here we go.
But if you're Catholic, you remember your first communion. Do you remember your first communion? For those of you who are not Catholic, the first communion is the first time that a Catholic child indulges in cannibalism. Yeah, one good day, the nun showed up in the classroom and she said, "You are ready to eat the body of Christ," which happens at 7 years old. When the Catholic Church decides that a child has the use of reason, you're gonna eat the body of Christ, but a child doesn't understand metaphors or symbolism, and I started crying because on top of it, in Nicaragua, it's not Santa Claus who brings the presents. It's the baby Jesus. So I said, I'm going to eat it. There goes my Christmas.
So good. When was that? When did you do that one?
That show was on the 20th, I believe it was, of February 2020.
Oh, there's nothing better
before.
than a pre-pandemic show when we were so innocent and we were just concerned with our rights. Can you tell me a little bit about your childhood?
Well, my childhood was maybe upper middle class, sheltered. I went to Catholic school. We had a nanny. My mother was a lawyer. My father was a lawyer, and but I mean, we were not rich or anything, but we were not as the majority of the people in Nicaragua. Then,
I'm
when I
sorry,
was
I
seven
thought that
years,
you grew up poor. I'm going to bring on the next guest, Bianca Jagger. Please keep going. Sorry.
No, I got a story about Bianca.
Oh,
You cannot
great.
imagine
Me
the
too.
story
Me
about
too.
Bianca. Yeah, so anyway, the earthquake came in 1972, and it was the first time that one day you're living this life, the next day you don't live in this life anymore. I was uh, I was seven. I was seven when that happened. So we moved to another town. Our house didn't fall completely, but they had to reinforce it. Then at the same time, the dictator of Nicaragua became stronger because, of course, he became the hero to come and give things for people. Like the international aid that was arriving in Nicaragua. Somoza got it, and the thing is that he that was out of politics at that time. He came back to politics, and then the revolution started brewing at the moment, and got stronger and stronger when the when all of those abuses happened, and in 1978 my parents sent me to Canada to a relative's house
Oh.
because they didn't want everybody, like especially the children of the bourgeoisie, they were joining the guerrillas, like the Jesuits and the Assumption nuns where I grew up. They abandoned their habits and joined the guerrillas, and said that if Christ had lived in that milieu, Christ would have taken a machine gun to fight for the poor. So
So your parents sent you to Canada and they stayed.
my parents were with right wing tendencies in a way, and that
So were
they
they
didn't believe
were they
in the
safe?
revolution.
Did you feel
No,
they were
well, but
safe?
it's just that they didn't think that the Americans were going to allow the revolution to happen. But a lot of things were happening at a time in the world. It was not only Nicaragua, but all of the other social movements that were happening propelled the revolution to win. I, like many people, sympathize with what these young people that had gone to the mountain and fight for to free our country from the imperialism.
They
You know
were
that I sympathize.
Sandinistas, right?
The Sandinist. I
Yeah.
sympathize in like a young person. I would have never though joined the guerrillas because well, why wouldn't I? Because
Because you
I
use
just don't.
oil of Olay. That's why. Because you're a
Yeah,
lady.
yeah, no, I think it's because I have ADHD. I just couldn't picture myself going to the mountains and assembling and disassembling a Kalashnikov rifle in the dark, like you had to do.
But your parents thought that you might become a Sandinista, and that's why they sent you to Canada, right?
One of the reasons, the other reason was that my mother read my diary. I had two diaries. You know, like lesbian people do or gay people do. You had two diaries. The one where you wrote the reality and one that I left lying around for her to read. And then she found the real one and she read that I was dabbling in lesbianism. And
How old
then
were you?
I was 16.
Nice.
I was 16, and then they decided that they had to separate me from this person,
Okay,
and
let's
then
wait. Let's just go back a little bit to the dabbling. Were you so you were you in Catholic school? Where
yes,
yeah,
and
dabbling. That's almost a course. It's almost you can't
no,
graduate from
not
Catholic.
only the dabbling was I wasn't gonna mention it, but the dabbling was with a novice from
I,
my school, with an aspiring nun who was 23. So, I thought that I thought that she was my girlfriend. Turns out that I was abused. You know what I mean? As it turns out,
oh,
you
so
know
the
what I mean?
novice was actually more of a pro, and you were the novice. You were the
Yeah,
novice in this.
I was
Okay.
the novice in the lesbian acts. But I mean, it
Ah,
wasn't it wasn't that you went all the way. But my mother just read that I had this love for this person and blah blah. And it just so happened that then the novice, she one day, she one day, like I don't like to say it because it sounds like fiction, but it's just like one day the mother superior came to the classroom and said that she was gone. And I never knew because she was a Spaniard. I never knew whether she was caught with another girl, whether she was caught with me, like in
of
some sort
course.
of or whether my mother, who was very influential, had deported her. I never knew. I never
Oh,
knew.
it
It was
seems like it might be your mother. Your mother did
yeah.
it. She
It
sent
could
the
have.
novice away. Oh,
It could
wow.
have happened, and I was sent to where did they send me in exile from the island of Lesbos to Montreal? Like the women in Montreal.
Oh my gosh,
It's like
yes.
it was like Disneyland for lesbians.
You are in Montreal, and how did you become a comedian?
Well, that's another that was like when I became a refugee, I didn't know how hard was gonna be, right? To achieve your papers, to fight. I didn't know. I just knew that I wanted to stay here. And it was the same with becoming a comedian. I studied translation, I studied language, modern language and linguistics, modern languages and linguistics, and I was a tour guide at the time. I was the personal tour guide of the Latin American wives of the Expos, the baseball players. It was so interesting to be with the girls of summer because they are mostly all of them are pregnant and all of them are in competition like because of their men. But I developed this I took them around the city, and I wanted to be able to get away of the complex inferiority complex of the accent, let's say. And then I loved comedy. I lived in Montreal, where the festival was, and Andy Nullman was teaching a workshop. Andy Nullman, the CEO of Just for Laugh,
Oh my
a comedy
gosh.
work,
Yes, yes. Uh-huh.
a comedy workshop. So then I took the workshop, and the graduation was a show. And then I did the show. Like I practiced. This is like 2 months after I started writing exercises and all of that. But when you begin, you don't really know. I always like when you saw stand-up comedians, you thought that they were thinking of on the top of their head, and then it was so interesting
Yeah.
to me to learn all of these techniques at the time. You have to address immediately the accent, he said, because that's the first thing that they notice about you.
And ordinarily, it would have offended me that somebody believes I have cocaine because I am a comedian. It would have offended me.
So that was what I dealt with. Remember that there were no Latino, nobody, no Latinos. I was the first Latina, and only 3 years ago there is another Latino, Marito Lopez, from Salvadorian parents who grew up in Canada. There
That's
was nobody.
it?
There
Wow.
was
Yeah.
nobody to for me to look up to. But the thing is that in the graduation of the school, I invited my friends, and I felt, you know when you feel in a state of grace. The next day, I did this, and I love it, and I'm ready for the Letterman show.
So you went from being a translator to being a tour guide to taking this class to
And
starting out in comedy in Montreal.
in Montreal, and there was only two women in Montreal at the time, Heidi Foss and me. So of course, they were very soon, like in 3 months, I was doing weekends. All I wanted was to become a headliner. And I started studying comedy, like watching headliners from the day that they arrive in town, from Wednesday to Sunday, and
Wow.
then that's how you learn, right? Because I knew I had the limitation of language. In comedy, you have to be an expert in language, or in the fluidity. Then there was the thing about what I wanted to talk about. Do I want to talk about? I had to talk about me because it was very hard to translate the whole Nicaraguan thing. In Canada, there is not a huge Latin community like in the states, that you could connect to a lot more people in the states.
Right.
I
It's
think
and it's still complicated. I mean, for Latinos, it's complicated because people think we're a monolith, and that's the first thing that you kind of
that's the
have
first
to
thing.
educate people on in a funny way, so they don't think they're getting a,
Yeah.
social studies lesson.
And then like I used to always do. I sent to you the clip, the about going for elocution lessons and all that. And then Gloria came along, Sofia Vergara. Like, believe it or not, I stopped explaining the accent because I thought they already have heard. Although she and I don't speak alike, they have already heard the Spanish accent.
I think things have changed so much, and especially I think because of the pandemic and mediums like Clubhouse, where it's become international, and so it's almost like audiences are now used to seeing openly lesbian, gay, non-binary, trans comedians on stage. They're also not expecting everyone to sound like they
Uh-huh.
just jumped out of the farm, you know?
No, but I cut my teeth in the ranks of yak yaks, doing shows everywhere in the remote towns that I had never seen anybody like me. But I think that it was a blessing too. Like, I don't remember one day that I went crying home because I felt racism. Now I'm sure, because of what we have seen with the advent of Trump and the Trumpers here in Canada, and people writing on the internet. Now I realize that in Canada there are a lot of racist people
Yeah,
too.
they morph. You're about to do some live shows which sounds really
Again.
exciting. Yeah, right. What is the step? Because here it's like I'm going to be in a play in about a month or so, and it's so venues seem to be opening, yet the venue I was supposed to be at next week closed for COVID, and so it's like, yeah, you just don't know from one week to the next, but up in Toronto, it's
Well,
is
no,
it back? Is it back
no,
100%?
this was our third in December. At the end of December, I was supposed to do Massey Hall on like a huge, beautiful theater on New Year's Eve. We couldn't do it because
Oh,
they closed, and then now they are opening only on the first to 50% capacity. I did a show for a festival, and everybody masked, and because they wanted evergreen material, you couldn't even acknowledge it that the people
oh,
were that the people were masked. And it was so weird. In a 700 people theater, 50 people all clamped, masked.
let me
It hasn't played.
let's just stop and explain what evergreen material is. It's so that they can replay it in broadcasts, and an
Yeah.
audience 5 years from now will enjoy it because everything is universal, and it's the same as it always was. So
But
yeah,
that was naive because I mean this thing is something that we all survived. The pandemic. I realize that in the United States, it has been a lot more open than here. More open than here. But in reality, I didn't feel like whenever we had those windows in which we could go in the world again,
yep,
I was a little bit apprehensive.
yeah.
Because comedy is contagious, you know.
And people are
We
laughing, like that's why I'm doing
yeah.
my worst material so they don't laugh. This certainly is not an evergreen broadcast. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me, Marga. Thank you.
But one thing that is evergreen is where people can find you on social media. You are a comedian, spelled
Martha
with an
with an
H. Marta
Chavez with
Chavez
an
with an
S.
S. Very. But I love that you're doing comedian and not the feminine comedian. Oh boy.
Oh no.
Yeah, no.
No. I
Oof,
hate
oof.
that
Like
word.
nails on a blackboard. And that's on Instagram. And where else are you active on social media?
I'm more active on Facebook than I am on Twitter. It's also comedian Martha Chavez. On Facebook, on Twitter, I don't go because I feel this dark force pulling me to read about world politics and the politics of the United States that I was obsessed for 4 years. And I don't
Yes.
want to know anything. I just know that empires fall. We may be seeing the fall of the empire before your very eyes, and I just want to talk to my cats. I mean, does it
Marta
happen to you?
Chavez, everyone. You can find her talking to her cats online, on Instagram, on Facebook, and we have to do this again because we haven't even scratched the surface of all the amazing things about you. Thanks for being on Latina Stream Queens Queen.
Thank you, Marga.
Woohoo! All right.
Did you like the interview?